This is Danny Bohnen with Poolside at the Flamingo, and you're listening to the Brutally Delicious Podcast.
One, two, three, four. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast. The Brutally Delicious Podcast.
70,000 tons of metal. The original, the world's biggest heavy metal cruise. 60 bands, 4 days, one cruise ship, only 3,000 tickets. From Miami, Florida to Ocho Rios, Jamaica, January 30th to February 3rd, 2025. 5 days and 4 nights mingling side by side with your favorite artists in this incredible fan-friendly scenario that has no comparison. Go to 70,000tons.com and book your ticket now.
Actually, before we get started, where are you at? You're out in Colorado?
Yeah, I'm in Colorado, just like 40 minutes north of Denver, outside of Longmont, Colorado. Yeah.
Okay. So is it spring yet or summer, or is it still
No, it
pretty cold?
is. It's we've had some hot days so far. It's just getting there, you know. I think yesterday got up to maybe 80. We've been in the 80s a couple days so far. Yeah.
I know that's got nothing to do with anything, but anyway, let's talk about Poolside at the Flamingo. New record, The Deceiver. I just listened to it getting ready this morning, and man, it is so grindcore, I guess. It's so heavy. It's so precise, right? I mean, super precise as well.
Well, thanks. I mean, we get a lot of, I guess, I don't want to say arguing, but there's a lot of arguing about what genre we land in, you know what I mean? And so The Deceiver is just released last week. That's the last single off of we have a 4-song EP that just is now done releasing with Deceiver out now. And we just did a little run of shows, and we have a couple more coming up still. But yeah, we say grindcore, deathcore, if you could combine those two, but some people swear that we're not grindcore at all, and we're just deathcore, and some people, agree. So you never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's too much split in the metal world. You either like it, you don't like. I mean, I don't know why there has to be so much deviation. I like certain types of metal, and it is what it is. But
true enough. So we have some advertising out there that just says grindcore ? Deathcore ? You decide. Like we're just playing it.
Heavy as hell and so technical and tight, and I think that's the thing I take away the most out of it. How hard is it to play those songs live?
There's some parts specifically in The Deceiver that you just mentioned, the very beginning, to be exact. That it's taken about a lot of practicing to get that one down, and even still, I would say we get it super tight about 90% of the time when we play it live. We've only played it live 4 or 5 times now, and it went pretty well. There might have been one time where our singer just a little off the downbeats there, you know what I mean? But no, it's we definitely had to practice a ton to get this new material down. It's more so technical and has to be on point than anything we've ever written before. And we've sort of changed our whole live setup. We've been around since 2005 or so. Back then, it was just play to the drummer and exchange glances, figure out what we're doing. And we were pretty tight at the time, but we've sort of updated things to give the audience a more consistent show. We play to a click track now. We have some backing tracks. And so I think it's ultimately made it easier to stay tight and stay on with each other. I don't have to look at the drummer all the time and now we're coming in. But it could be argued that you lose a little bit of that improvness when you play a live show.
And the rawness, maybe a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. So, but that's what bands are doing these days. I guess it makes things a little easier to include in your set, like backing tracks and samples, and then it also allows you to schedule the set just right on time. You can show up to a venue and say, "Look, our set is 30 minutes exactly." Like we can show you. Right. Once I hit go on the laptop, it's going to be 30 minutes.
So let me ask you a question then, because this comes up a lot on the show, and it's sort of a hot topic here and there. obviously your thoughts are okay on background tracks and stuff, but where do you draw the line, and how do you decide, hey, they've gone too far? Or, I mean, obviously I'm thinking of the bigger bands who we know have gone too far, but how do you guys draw the line?
Yeah, so I believe we're flirting with the line a little, because this is the first few shows where we actually included a second guitar that's reamped live. We've never done that before, and I was sort of like against that. I just said, I'm only going to write. I play guitar, and I'm our only guitar player. And in the past, all of our old material, I'm like, look, I'm only writing for one guitar. I want to be able to play it live. So even when we record, I'm not really going to overlap guitars. I'm not going to do everything, just so that we can correctly play it live. And I've sort of always been of that mindset. And then more recently, we have a couple friends bands that are blowing up and touring. And I've been to a couple of those shows, and I've talked to some of those guys, and it's sort of insane now how the new norm is to just have instruments filled in with people that aren't there. So yeah, so I jumped on the train slightly, and I said, well, for this EP, I'm going to add a second guitar in certain places, just to add some harmonies here and there, some dueling guitars here and there, and then just add some volume to the music. So this is the first time where I pre-recorded some stuff, and I have it being it's sort of a crazy setup. It's like a clean signal going into this amp head I have that reamps itself live and comes out of a guitar cab on the side of the stage. And so we did have that, and a lot of people might, shame us for having that, but it's just one instrument that shows up and only plays something different, like a handful of times than what I'm playing.
So let me ask you another, and I'm not trying to be a trick question, but what happens if the power goes out? You guys know these songs inside and out and can still play, right? It's not the end.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, we almost had a weird mess up at one of the shows, and it ended up just being a brain fart on my end, and something was muted. But there was a moment where I was like, oh, we're just gonna have to ditch all this. And actually, specifically, it was that second guitar. I was like, we can just ditch the guitar. And
right. So then I guess to my point is, you're on the correct side of the line. You're not really even straddling it, right? If you could still play those songs and you've still got a show.
It's true. So had we lost that, unless there'd be some minor things missing. Like, unless you really had our album memorized and you're expecting to hear some of those dueling, barely harmonized parts, then you might be like, what happened there? And that would be it. But no. We could still get through the whole set pretty much without the audience knowing what the hell's happened. It's just sort of there as a nice nuance, a nice little thing,
There's been somebody else in the news a lot lately who's canceled shows when his laptop goes down for the whole band. I mean,
that's
huge.
No good.
They're massive, and his laptops got lost, and they can't. And said, hey, we can't make it. Our laptops got stolen or whatever, and canceled big arena shows.
Yeah,
so
that would be rough.
Yeah, that's across the line for me. I mean, then at some
point.
No,
if you're going to depend on that, you got to have like 3 backups or something.
Right?
It's crazy. But no, there have been times in the past where our bass player couldn't make it with us, and we just play without him. Honestly, without a bass track there, and it has been okay. But now that we have this new setup, it might be something I consider, like putting bass on if we knew he wasn't going to make it for some reason.
Right. No, that all makes sense.
So yeah.
So I'm going to try and pronounce the name. ACCABADORA?
Yeah, pretty much. ACCABADORA. Yeah.
Okay, great.
ACCABADORA.
Now that the album's out and people are sitting with it, what's been the feedback to it so far? Has it been pretty good?
Yeah, so we're getting the feedback that this is the best material we've put out there, and I agree with that because, honestly, it's the most thought that we've ever put into writing. It's the most time we ever took to make sure it was what we wanted it to be before we put it out there. A lot of the stuff in the past we would just be jamming, freestyling, and we would just sort of keep things on a whim. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that next. And it was fine. And a lot of people like our old stuff, but this is sort of the first time where I sat down and just really, focused on it and made sure we put out what I wanted. And the writing process has changed, back when, without all this digital help.
Right, all in a room.
Yeah, it was all in person. We were all sitting in a room. I would just come with an idea. The drummer might have an idea. We'd piece things together. We just jam on it. We would figure out songs together in a room. A lot of times it would take longer and the process was a little slower, but that's how it would happen. And nowadays, of course, I can sit down at a computer and write the drums that I think should go there and play to them, send a little rough copy to the rest of the guys. The drummer can be like, he can change it up a little if he wants, or he's not as savvy with the program. So we might just practice live, and live he'll change it up a little bit. And we're like, okay, let's do that. So it's a whole different thing these days. And even with releasing music, when we were releasing music back in 2005, 6, 7, 8, we were always writing, so we'd be practicing a lot. I didn't have kids back then. I wasn't married. And so we would jam a lot more often. We'd always be writing, and we'd play a lot of shows, and whatever we had just written between one show and the next show, we would just play it at the next show. It'd be a new song. We'd play it. And soon enough, after a certain amount of time, we'd have enough songs to put a new album out, but we had been playing them that whole time. And when the album came out, we wouldn't really make a big fuss about it. It would just we just start having it at our shows and stuff like that. And totally different today from what everyone's doing. It's like, no, we have to write the full album. Don't play it until you release it. Make a huge deal about it and get as much press as you can. And which isn't a bad
whole
thing,
lot.
but it was just sort of nice back in the day to exist and constantly be creating and releasing music and not really worrying about that stuff.
Yeah. So this record comes now. I mean, obviously you're aging and you have kids. We just talked about that and that sort of thing. No. You guys don't show signs of like any sort of slowing down. It's still like so balls to the wall. And so is that surprising?
A little, I think. Maybe more so for our drummer, because he's the one that has to physically
and then get up the next morning, right?
And actually, that was like a little bit of a concern for a second. He was like, we had set these tempos that we were going to play to and everything, and he just had to do some extra practicing. And we've been on a couple hiatuses over the last while, and where he sort of fell out of it a little. But no, we just, like I said, we just played a small run of shows, and he was on point, and he was able to keep the blasts strong. And that was always a good talent he's had back in the day. He's not the most technical as far as tons of fills and things like that, but he can go fast, and he can go fast consistently and for a long time. You see a lot of drummers that will,
right? Probably not the greatest drummer in the world, but he's the best at keeping things in the pocket.
Yeah, exactly. And you'll see a lot of drummers who blast beat, if they'll blast for 3 measures and then there'll be a fill, and they'll blast for 3 measures, then there'll be a fill, because a lot of times they might be losing it and they got to fill. Right. He can just sit there a minute straight, just blast straight, so that's been really helpful for us, and it helps stand out, I think.
Right. Yeah. What's the crowd like now at some of these shows? Because I imagine it's people bringing their kids to the shows, like a little multi-generational thing.
Yeah. So obviously, as we've aged, so have some of our fans, and we're running into old friends and faces at some of these shows that we've been playing lately. They definitely aren't being as active as they used to be. They're the guys that are grabbing a drink at the bar and hanging back and enjoying the show, right. But we still do connect with a younger crowd. And I think we've had to change the music a little just to keep up with today's standards and appeal to a little bit of younger crowd, which is fine with us, because it's the style we want to play anyways. And so I'd say it's a good mix, but it's definitely good to see all the old familiar faces in the audience. Definitely.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey, and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.
So,
I know you said you've done some small runs. Are you planning on taking it on tour or on the road? And
so we just did I say a small run. I mean, we dubbed them like EP release shows. We did a handful, and we have a couple more still coming up. So we went out down through Texas, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, and then back home again, just because we had some good friends in some of those places when we used to tour a lot back in the day.
Right.
We have a show coming up on the 10th, in about a couple weeks here in Grand Junction with Cryptopsy in Colorado here. And then a Denver show at the end of the month. That'll be like, we're from Denver, and so that'll be probably our biggest EP release show.
Right.
So that'll be a nice one. But past that, we don't have anything solid planned yet. But we're definitely looking for the right opportunity to head back out on the road again. It's a little tougher these days because all of us have kids and families.
Right.
I have 2 kids. My brother, who's our singer, has 2 kids, and
it's expensive
so does
to
our
be out
bass
there.
player. Yeah, and it's getting tough to justify to our wives why we need to be out on the road playing
Right.
music when it doesn't necessarily make a bunch of money. It's super
Right.
fun for us. So, but with the right opportunity, we could do it. If we had the right string of dates with the right bands, then we would probably go for it for sure. But I don't know that we'll try really hard to book our own headline tour without any supporting bands, here and there. Yeah.
There's a lot of U.S. festivals you could get on, aren't there?
Yeah. And that's something we haven't really dug into a lot. And we should
There are
look
more
into it
now
more.
than ever.
We've played Full Terror Assault a couple times out open air festival out in Illinois with a lot of old school death metal bands.
Yeah. You
and
guys would be a good fit at Maryland Death Fest.
Yeah. That would be a good time. And then there's smaller ones even too popping up all over, and we could sort of connect them with other shows on the way in.
Yeah.
So that's something we'll probably look into for sure.
So what's next for you guys? And you have the homecoming show and the promoting the record. Are you one of those bands that's always writing, so you guys got more stuff going, or focusing?
Like I said, back when we were always writing, more so these days we're not. We'll write then take a short break. So we released a 7-song EP in 2023, and then took just a small couple month break. And I thought that we could write better material, and that we didn't just put our all into that. And so that's why we came up with this 4-song as fast as we could. Of course, we wrote it and all the writing was done by the end of December of last year. But then the way that, they tell you to release things, it's not fully out until just last week,
Right.
So now that it's out though, and we did that string of shows, we're planning on going back to the writing board, and I'm not sure what that looks like yet. We've talked about doing a couple singles so the gap isn't too big, but I'd really prefer to just sit down and write like a full album again. It's been a while. And for us, that means 10 to 12 songs.
Right.
And so that's the goal.
Right.
Yeah. The songs tend to be, the newer ones are a little longer, but in the past, our songs on average in the past are like 1.5 minutes long or less.
Right. If fans want to find you guys, can you give us all your socials and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so we're just at Poolside at the Flamingo on everything. Facebook and Instagram is the best place to keep updated on us. We are pretty much still an independent band, so everything can be found at poolsideattheflamingo.com. Our online our streaming release is through Blood Blast distribution, but physicals of anything is still just directly to us. So we have our merch on our website. We have physical copies of our albums on our website. And then we have the show dates listed there too. So that's always a good place to go.
All right, perfect. Cool, man. All right, nice talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. We'll see you.
Be well. Cheers.
Bye.
Hey, this is Dewey Hulpus, host of Peer Pleasure on the Sound Talent Media Podcast Network. Join me each week as I explore another long-form conversation with one of your favorite musicians, actors, comedians, or creatives. From Chino Moreno of the Deftones, John Gorley of Portugal the Man, to Fat Mike from NoFX and Ian Mackay from Fugazi and Minor Threat, we go all over the map. From Fall Out Boy to Slayer, Peer Pleasure has it all. Check us out now on Sound Talent Media.